Now let's look at the ERM framework itself. So you can see here a diagram that answers the fundamental question, what is ERM? So the answer is that ERM is a capability to effectively answer a series of critical questions about risk. So let's walk around this framework. Let's start at the top right there and move clockwise. First, coverage. So here we ask, what are all the risks that our business strategy to our business strategy and operation? This is the identification component, ensuring that we have a comprehensive view of our risk landscape. Next, we ask about risk appetite. So here we ask, how much risk are we willing to take? So this establishes the boundaries within which we'll operate, the level of risk we'll accept in pursuit of our objective, essentially, how much risk we're willing to take. Next, we ask about governance and policies. So how good are we at overseeing risk-taking? So this addresses the organizational structure, the roles, and the policies that govern how risk decisions are made and monitored. Next, we look at risk data and infrastructure. How do we ensure that we have the right information to manage risk? So at this point, we're going to look at our data systems, analytics capabilities, and reporting infrastructure that supports risk management. The next step is to control the environment. Measurement, evaluation, communication. First, we have to cover this one. Here we ask, how do we determine the size and scope of risks and report the results? So at this step, we look at the methodologies for quantifying risks and the processes for communicating the findings about risk to all the stakeholders. Next, we look at control the environment. Control environment. So here we ask, how well do we manage the risk? So this covers the controls, procedures, and practices that actually mitigate risks day to day. Next, we look at the response. So we're asking, what are we doing about the risk? So at this point, we address the specific actions and strategies we're implementing to address all the risk we identified earlier. And finally, we have stress testing. So here we ask, what are we doing about the risks? What else can go wrong? And how are risks interconnected? So this pushes us to consider compound scenarios and cascading effects. So all this at the stress testing stage. So at the center of all this is a culture that values risk management. Okay, so we have to remember that risk management is not just about processes and frameworks. It's about how people throughout the organization think about and respond to risk in their daily decisions. Also note how the diagram is circular and everything is interconnected. So ERM is not a linear process. It's dynamic, integrated, and touches every aspect of organizational management. Now, let's examine how the risk management process will work within an ERM framework. So like we said, in ERM, the risk management process involves identifying, analyzing, evaluating, and eventually responding to and monitoring risks and opportunities. So these are the same fundamental steps we discussed earlier, but ERM will apply them with a broader scope and strategic orientation. And that's what differentiates ERM from traditional risk management, okay, is that we're looking across the entire organization. We're looking at both upside and downside, and we're considering risk in the context of our organizational strategy. Okay. So for this diagram right here shows you a visual representation of the ERM risk management process as a continuous cycle with four main components. So we start with risk identification. So this is where we systematically discover and document the risks and opportunities. We ask what could affect our organization, what events might occur, what are the sources of uncertainty we might face. So as you can see, this is not a one-time exercise, it's ongoing, okay, because new risk will emerge and existing risk might disappear or change. Next, we go to the risk evaluation step. This is where we assess each identified risk from the previous step, and we analyze the likelihood and impact, consider existing controls, and determine residual risk levels. We compare these against our risk appetite and tolerance, and then decide which are should be prioritized and require attention first. Next, we go to risk response. So now that we identified the prioritized risks, at this step we decide how we're going to address each of them. So we will avoid the activities that creates the risk. That's one option. Maybe we can transfer the risk to another party. Maybe we can mitigate the risk through controls, or we can accept the risk if it falls within our risk tolerance. Same for opportunities. Are we going to pursue them? Are we going to share them? Are we going to enhance, or are we just going to ignore them? And finally, the last step is risk monitoring. So once we decided how to deal with each risk, we start tracking them over time and assess the effectiveness of our response, and watch for changes in the risk environment as well. Okay, so we ask ourselves, are our controls working as expected? Are the risk level changing? Are new risk emerging? And at the center of this cycle is the ERM process. So that's just how all these four components work together as integrated. So they're not isolated steps or separated steps. No, they work together. And it's a continuous cycle. Okay, so it's not, you know, a one-time thing. Once we identified the risk, we're done. No, we have to keep reevaluating, responding, and monitoring as new risk can happen. So this is a more detailed diagram of how ERM works in practice. So it shows that we have a risk oversight committee at the center, surrounded by the key activities of the risk management process. So the risk oversight committee provides governance and coordination for the entire ERM program. So this is typically a senior level body that includes executives from across the organization, and typically shared by the chief risk officer and reports directly to the board of directors. Around this central governance body, then you have the activities that we just discussed: risk identification, assess the risk, plan the response strategy with different options: accept, share the risk, mitigate, or avoid it, implement the mitigation strategy, and then monitor the performance. Okay, so we need to track whether our responses are working, and this includes both self-assessment, evaluation done internally, or also an internal audit, independent verification. Okay, and again, you can see that it's a cycle that is ongoing, which allows for continuous improvement as we repeat the process over and over again.